Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about The Vast of Night. The Vast of Night is kind of a simply told, low-budget, alien mystery movie. The kind of economical, bare-bones kind of movie that critics go gaga for. And I really love it. I like these kind of films because it's sort of simple, but I love a good, simple story that can kind of just wrap you up and you're so following the mystery. I was so compelled by it, even at parts was like, I mean, maybe that's stupid, but I'm really into this. The direction of Andrew Patterson, which I don't think this movie is stupid. I think it's actually very, very good and very well directed. It shows me real promise from a good, I guess, sci-fi horror director, which we don't get these kind of things. It sort of reminds me a bit of Monsters, but I'd say this is a lot better than that. This shows even more promise, and it shows someone who understands period, loves Spielberg, loves being arty, but also understands how to tell a good fucking story, which might be the most Spielberg thing of them all. The way the camera moves in this to establish the small town, there's all these crazy tracking shots, which, yeah, tracking shots, it's a big way to swing your dick around as a director and show off and be like, look at this tracking shot. It breaks from the audience, just like, look at this stuff. And they have some really good ones starting off. And even a crazy one where they go halfway across the town. I've heard a go-kart was involved. I thought it was computers or magic or something. It was crazy, that tracking shot. I've seen people pay like millions of dollars with CG to make tracking shots, and this tracking shot was one of the best I was like really amazed at how they did it. It was really cool. Two kids get into a mystery, and much like a nice like boxcar children type beach read, when you're 9 years old, you're in it and don't even care about plausibility. Not that it isn't plausible, but I'm saying that's kind of how this film grabs you. You have these two characters. One, DJ Everett, played by Jake Horowitz. He's a kind of a local celebrity in this very small town. He's the DJ on a Friday night while everyone's at the big popular basketball game. This is in the 1950s. Based on the fact that they reference Elvis a bunch of times, I'm going to go out and say it's probably the late 50s. Let's say 58 or 59. This girl who he's kind of friendly with, and you see him talking to a lot in the beginning opening shot, which follows them forever, is a switchboard operator, and she hears a weird sound, tells him about it, and they get obsessed with this weird sound, play it over the radio, and sort of unlock a huge mystery. It's like a good X-Files story. It's like a good sort of Twilight Zone story, which this film kind of tries to act like it's in a rip-off Twilight Zone thing called Paradox Theater, which works really great as the opening and the ending thing, but doesn't work throughout it later. But this was a very tight film. I like films that are about 90 minutes. A tight 90 minutes is kind of my kind of movie, and that's what this was. It was a good kind of mystery to kind of get yourself wrapped up into, and watching these kids love it so much made it even more fun, because it's fun watching the characters get into this mystery, and it's just them one night trying to figure out what this weird sound is and kind of getting the idea that it may or may not be aliens. The whole idea of show don't tell kind of filmmaking is really on display here, but it very much works because he's on the radio, she's a switchboard operator, they're going to use sounds and like talk to people on the phone, and they find a way to make it compelling. I will say it tries to be a little too arty at times. I think I was with it, but I was kind of found it weird that it's like clearly at the beginning doing a lot of Spielberg, early Spielberg type things, and that's fine, but it was like showing a lot of like the back of their heads, and I was like, you know, Spielberg narratives and that kind of blockbuster narrative, maybe it's a small thing, but to me it was actually sort of a big thing. It's like he would have followed their faces, and most filmmakers who had this kind of a story would have followed their faces, but it kept following more of like everything around them, which I don't think was really as important as setting them up, and setting them up effectively probably would have been a lot better showing their faces, which this filmmaker opted not to do. I think it was to kind of show like how they were in the town and all that stuff, but at a certain point we fucking get it. Like, you don't really need to go on it that long, and you should have like turned the camera on. We see their face a little, but it wasn't shown very well, as well as this whole Paradox Theater thing. At the beginning, like, it kind of zooms into a TV, and we get that, like, you know, like as a framing device, and that's fine at the beginning and even at the end, but they keep doing it where suddenly the screen becomes all like TV weirdy, like I do at the beginning of these videos or something, and that's fine, but like, why are you doing it several times? It's just obnoxious, and you're just like, I just want to see the movie. Like, anytime they did that, it took me out of it completely. I kept thinking like, what is this shot like without this bullshit? Because like, it's not adding anything at this point. Like, at the beginning and the end it made sense. This is just like, just style for the fucking sake of it. Like, it was just, that was really flat out obnoxious. Like, I really hated that. Even though the beginning I have some issues, and I still really like this movie. Even though I have some major qualms with it in certain parts, I was still very compelled by it. It reminded me, I saw this on Disney Plus. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember really liking this Haley Mills film called The Moon Spinners. I don't even remember, maybe it sucks, I don't know. But I remember those kind of films where you just get wrapped up in a good tight mystery of like two kids on a mystery type of thing. And I thought that this film works so well with that. It was like, I forgot, like, when a filmmaker cares so much about plot, you're like not as focused on the characters, but he was also good at wrapping the characters up in this with DJ Everett and Faye. And I thought that was just they were just such fun kids to go through this mystery with, because while everyone's at the basketball game, they care about this alien noise, and it felt so much fun. And you know that, like, basically the whole plot of this film takes place like from, you know, a half hour, an hour before the basketball game till the end of the basketball game, and it's like what goes on for that. And I grew up in suburbia, and it kind of reminds me of like a weird Friday night activity in suburbia or something like that. Like, that's what it reminds me of. I love how economical this is. I think Andrew Patterson, and this screenplay was nominated at the Indie Spirit Awards for Best for a Screenplay from Craig Sanger and James Montague, and I thought they did a great job. This is a fun little mystery kind of film, but it's definitely probably one of my more favorite films I've seen this year, despite its flaws, despite that I don't know what it was doing in some cases, and I've noticed some people really don't like the ending. I was fine. I feel like there's only like two ways you're going to go with this fucking thing, and you pick one, and they picked one. It's like, where are they going to go? I don't know. I think it's Gail Kroner did an amazing kind of small performance in this, where she gives them some backstory of her life with these aliens and stuff. That was such a compelling piece. She just did a really great job, and even though she's like the town crazy, I was like compelled by her. This also reminded me a lot of, like, I grew up watching a lot of unsolved mysteries, and sometimes I'll just get really into an alien abduction story, even if I know it's like not really that real. And I know sometimes people make fun of those things, but if you watch, so I've noticed they pick the ones that are really laughable, but if you watch some of the other ones, they're a lot scarier and more compelling. And this reminded me of that, like, compelling nature of those stories, whether you believe them or not. And while they're going on, I always get wrapped up in them. So maybe a lot of this is just that I'm a sucker for these type of things. There's also a great performance of Billy by Bruce Davis. They even have all this great rich detail and backstory. In some ways that reminded me a lot of the Blair Witch, where like you kind of believe in the lore because it has so much detail in it. The fact that, like, where this noise came from, and he says, like, they'd always get these guys who were like black or Hispanic, or like because no one would believe them and they'd be forgotten, and like, or the crazy woman across the town, and like maybe this conspiracy is only known by these people because they know no one will believe it and it won't get anywhere. Especially in the 1950s, that's even makes more sense, and that kind of plays into what your understanding of the 1950s is. The Vast of Night is just a really good economical film. I'd say if you're a new filmmaker, this is the film to see right now. This is the film you need to see. It'll inspire you. You'll get wrapped up in it, but it'll like give you some ideas. It'll make you want to make a film like this tight. This is the kind of film first-time filmmakers should be seeing, because it kind of shows you like just making like these kind of simpler, low-budget kind of stories and how that can really work for you. I know that, obviously they had a lot more budget than most, with Jake Horowitz and Sirianna McCormick probably having agents, and this was an Amazon movie or something like that, but this shows you what you can accomplish on a smaller budget, and it's a little more attainable than a big $100 million film. And that's why I kind of like these films, because of that. It shows you what a director can really do with a simple story like that and make it this compelling. That was one of the things I kept thinking about, is how wrapped up in this mystery I got. And I don't think there's a lot of mystery films, you get into it, you have fun, but like I was like, wait, what time is it right now? Like that was the Vast of Night. I got really wrapped into it. It definitely has its issues. There's things it can do better. I actually liked how dark it is, and I'm not really a fan of that kind of cinematography. It was shot by Littin-Menz, who did a great job on this, especially with all the tracking shots. There's some shots I absolutely love, but I like the darkness to it, because I imagine to my understanding, there weren't as many lights as we have now in the 50s. So it was a little darker, actually. I've always heard that from people. So I thought it played very well. It was very like period specific. It didn't feel like they were being kitsch about it. It didn't feel like they were disrespecting the 50s. It felt like they sort of wanted to show you what it would have been like in the 50s in this small town, even though he's a radio DJ and she's a switchboard operator. But it kind of plays both into the pulpness of it, but I'd say in the good mystery of it, but also in the realism of what would it be like in a 50s small town if this really happened. I really got that from it, and I'm definitely excited to see another another Andrew Patterson film, and I'd say this is probably one of the best alien conspiracy movies I've seen in a really long time, partly because it got me to believe in the mystery again, and not a lot of those things can do it, especially as cynical as society is, as cynical as I am as someone who's seen too many of these things. It just wrapped me up and made me kind of want to believe in their mystery, and that's a fun thing to give you for an hour and a half. So if you have seen The Vast of Night and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.